Hey everyone, today we're jumping right into a really important topic, the system of rights and supports available for transgender women here in Canada. We're going to break down everything from legal protections to healthcare, all in one straightforward guide. So let's get into it. So, this is the big question, right? We hear a lot of talk, but what does the support system for trans women in Canada actually look like when you get down to it? How do all those laws and policies translate to real-life benefits? Well, that's exactly what we're here to unpack. Okay, first things first, let's define a term you're going to hear a lot, gender-affirming care. And this is key, it is not just about medical procedures. It's the whole package, the medical, the social, and the psychological support that helps someone align their life with their gender identity. You can think of it as the foundation for pretty much everything else we're going to talk about. So where do we start? Well, we start with the bedrock, the legal stuff. Because honestly, without these core protections in place, getting access to anything else is just so much harder. These laws are the framework that makes sure these rights are guaranteed, not just suggested.
And at the heart of it all is the Canadian Human Rights Act. This is a really big deal. It explicitly makes it illegal to discriminate against someone based on their gender identity anywhere in Canada. And look at what it covers, your job, your housing, and your access to public services like healthcare and schools. It's basically a powerful, nationwide shield against being treated unfairly.
So how does this legal recognition actually work in practice? Well, a huge part of it is being able to update your legal documents. And the absolute game changer here is step one, self-declaration. This is a massive shift. In many places, you no longer need to provide proof of surgery. It starts with an individual's own statement. This is so empowering because it removes a major barrier and affirms a person's right to define who they are. Okay, so we have the legal rights on paper. How does that turn into actual healthcare? Let's dive into what gender-affirming care looks like and how it's covered, both by public healthcare and private insurance.
This chart breaks it down perfectly. Gender-affirming care has a few main pillars. You've got hormone therapy, or HRT, and different surgical options. But just as crucial are things like mental health support and having access to a good primary care doctor who gets it. They all work together to create a supportive healthcare journey.
So who pays for what? Here's a quick snapshot. Generally, your provincial health plan will cover the basics, things like HRT and mental health services. It'll also partially cover some major surgeries. Private insurance, if you have it, usually comes in to supplement that, maybe helping with costs that the public plan doesn't cover. But, and you see it right there at the bottom, the single most important thing to remember is that coverage varies a lot from province to province. Now, government systems and healthcare plans are only part of the story. You know, sometimes the most powerful support comes from the community itself. So this section is all about the incredible role that community groups and peer networks play. I mean, these organizations are absolute lifelines. They step in and fill all the gaps that the formal systems might miss. We're talking everything from peer support groups where you can connect with people who understand to real, practical help finding a safe place to live or a job. For a lot of people, these groups are the first place they turn. And just so you know, these are real, tangible places. Here are just a few big examples. You've got community helps like the 519 in Toronto and Qmunity out in Vancouver that are just pillars of their local communities. And then you have national groups like EGAL Canada that work on advocacy and research for the entire country. We've talked about the big picture systems. Now let's zoom in and see how these rights and protections actually show up in everyday life, at your job, at school, and just out in public. This is where it all becomes real. These legal protections mean you can't be fired or passed over for a job just because you're a trans woman. It means universities often have supports in place to help you change your name and gender on their records. And it means there are growing protections for things as basic as being able to use a public restroom or access a shelter safely.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground, so let's just pause and pull it all together. Let's focus on the absolute most critical things to take away from all this. If you only remember a couple of things, make it these next points.
Seriously, if you take away only one single thing from this entire explainer, let it be this. While federal law sets a baseline, almost all healthcare and social services are handled by the provinces. That means what's covered in British Columbia could be totally different from what's covered in Nova Scotia. You have to check your local provincial guidelines for the specific details. This quote right here points to such an important and positive trend. The system is slowly moving away from making people prove who they are through medical gatekeeping. This shift towards accepting self-identification is a huge deal.
It respects a person's autonomy and makes it so much easier to get the support you need without jumping through a bunch of unnecessary hoops.
So, we've laid out the national framework of rights, healthcare, and community support, but that really just leads us to the final, most important question, doesn't it? What does this all look like in your local community? Because taking this information and finding the resources right where you live, well, that's the next step.